My little brother's text message lit up my phone screen at exactly 9:14 p.m. on a Friday night, buzzing angrily against the polished mahogany of my executive desk. "Don't come to the BBQ this weekend." The preview read. I didn't even need to unlock the phone to know what the rest of it said, but I swiped open the message anyway just to feel the familiar sting of their audacity. The full text from Leo was even more pathetic than I expected. "Bella says you bring down the vibe. You know how she is about aesthetics. And honestly, Clara, your whole depressed single girl energy is just too heavy for the party. Mom and Dad agree. Just stay at your apartment and we'll send you some leftovers next week. Don't make a scene." I stared at the glowing words sitting alone in the corner office of Vanguard Holdings on the 45th floor, the city of Seattle sprawling out beneath me like a circuit board of diamonds. They thought I was sitting in my sad little apartment, probably crying over a microwave dinner. They thought I was Clara the scapegoat, the family failure, the quiet secretary who shuffled papers for important people and lived paycheck to paycheck. They had no idea that the office job I'd vaguely alluded to for the last 5 years was actually me building a private equity empire from the ground up. I wasn't a secretary. I was the founder and CEO of Vanguard Holdings, and I had just closed a deal that would net the firm $80 million by Monday morning. I took a sip of my sparkling water, typed back a single word, "understood," and flipped my phone face down. Before I tell you how I destroyed them, make sure you're subscribed, because you are not going to want to miss the look on my brother's face when the truth hit him like a freight train. The irony was delicious. They didn't want me at their backyard barbecue because I didn't fit Bella's aesthetic, but they were perfectly happy to use my Netflix password, which I had revoked 10 minutes ago. I spent the night sleeping on the couch in my office, too focused on the upcoming quarter projections to drive home to my penthouse. By Saturday morning, the office was silent, bathed in the cool gray light of the Pacific Northwest. I was enjoying the peace, reviewing the acquisition files for a tech startup in Bellevue when my desk phone chirped. It was the weekend security line. "Ms. Vance." The guard's voice was hesitant. "I have 2 individuals down here at the front desk, a Mr. Leo Vance and a Mrs. Bella Vance. They're insisting it's a family emergency and demanding to speak to whoever runs the checkbook. They say they have an appointment with the Angel Investment Division, though I don't see one on the books." I froze my pen, hovering over the paper. A family emergency. Had something happened to Mom or Dad? But then I remembered the checkbook comment. No, this wasn't a medical emergency. This was a financial one. And they had no idea I was the one sitting at the top of the tower. To them, I was just Clara the secretary who worked somewhere in the city. They must have Googled top investment firms Seattle and just picked my building by coincidence, assuming they could bully their way into a meeting. "Send them up," I said, my voice flat. "Room A, the main boardroom." "Are you sure, ma'am? They're a bit agitated." "I'm sure, send them." I stood up, smoothing the front of my silk blouse. I didn't put on a blazer. I didn't check my hair. I walked out of my private office and down the long, glass-walled corridor toward Boardroom A. I could hear them before I even saw them. Bella's shrill voice was echoing off the minimalist concrete walls, complaining about the elevator speed. "I can't believe we have to wait this long," she was saying. "This place is supposed to be elite. When my brand takes off, Leo, we are getting a private elevator. None of this shared space nonsense." "I know, babe, I know." Leo soothed his voice, dripping with that pitiful enabler desperation I'd known all my life. "Just focus on the pitch. Once we get the seed money, we're set. Mom and Dad said they'd cover the mortgage this month so we can use your credit cards for the prototype." I stepped into the boardroom through the back entrance and sat at the head of the 20-foot marble table. I swiveled the massive leather chair around so my back was to the door, staring out at the Space Needle. I heard the heavy glass doors slide open behind me. "Hello," Leo's voice boomed. "We're looking for the senior partner. We have an urgent opportunity." I didn't turn around. "Take a seat," I said, keeping my voice low. There was a pause. The sound of chairs scraping against the floor, the rustle of expensive shopping bags. "Excuse me," Bella said, her tone sharp and entitled. We aren't here to talk to an assistant. We specifically asked for the person in charge of capital allocation. We don't have time to waste with lower management. I slowly spun the chair around. The silence that followed was so absolute, it felt like the oxygen had been sucked out of the room. Leo was mid-motion, pulling a pitch deck out of his leather satchel. His hand froze in the air. Bella, dressed in a white designer tracksuit that I knew she couldn't afford, dropped her oversized sunglasses onto the table with a clatter. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. "Clara." Leo finally choked out, his eyes bulging. He looked around the room, taking in the panoramic views, the abstract art, the terrifyingly expensive furniture, and then looked back at me. What are you doing here? Are you cleaning on the weekends now?" "Yeah." Bella let out a breathy, nervous laugh, seizing onto the explanation. "Oh my God, you scared us. I didn't know you picked up shifts as a janitor. That's actually sweet in a sad way. Look, Clara, we're in a really important meeting right now, so can you take your break somewhere else? We need the room." I didn't move. I didn't smile. I just rested my elbows on the table and interlaced my fingers. "I'm not cleaning, Bella. You asked to see the person in charge of Vanguard Holdings. You're looking at her." "Stop joking." Leo snapped his face, flushing red. "It's embarrassing. Just get us some water and leave before the actual boss comes in and fires you. You know you can't afford to lose this job, especially since you're not even invited to the BBQ to mooch food." "Leo," I said, my voice dropping an octave, putting on the tone I used to negotiate hostile takeovers. "I founded Vanguard Holdings 5 years ago. I own 51% of the controlling stock. This building, I signed the lease. This table, I picked it out. Now security said you had a pitch. You have exactly 3 minutes before I have you escorted out for trespassing. Go." Bella stared at me, her eyes darting from my face to the nameplate on the desk that read, "Clara Vance, CEO." The gears in her head were grinding loudly. She was a narcissist, and narcissists have a survival mechanism that allows them to pivot instantly. The shock on her face vanished, replaced by a terrifying plastic smile. She kicked Leo under the table. "Oh my God," Bella squealed, clapping her hands together. "Clara, you sly little fox. You were hiding this from us the whole time. Leo, did you hear that your sister is the CEO? This is literally fate." She stood up and spread her arms as if to hug me across the table, but sat back down when I didn't flinch. "This makes everything so much easier. We don't even need to do the formal pitch now. We can just keep it in the family." 2 minutes, I said, checking my watch. Bella cleared her throat, clearly annoyed that I wasn't swooning over her approval. She opened her folder. "Okay, so as you know, I'm an influencer. My brand, Bella Vita, is about to explode. We're launching a line of luxury holistic wellness gummies. They cure anxiety, bloating, and bad vibes. We just need $500,000 for the initial inventory and marketing push. Since you're family, we're willing to give you, let's say, 5% equity. But you have to sign the check today because the manufacturer in China needs the deposit by Monday." She slid the paper toward me. I didn't even pick it up. I just glanced at the cover page. "Holistic gummies," I repeated. "Do you have FDA approval?" "It's a supplement, Clara. We don't need the FDA." Bella scoffed, waving her hand. "Don't be boring. Look, the packaging is pink velvet. It's going to be viral on TikTok." "And the formulation?" I asked. "Who is your chemist?" "My friend Brittany makes them in her kitchen right now, but we're scaling up," Bella said, her smile tightening. "Why are you grilling me? It's 500 grand. You obviously have it." She gestured around the room. "Just write the check. Think of it as a wedding present that's a few years late." "Yeah, Clara," Leo chimed in, leaning forward, his confidence returning now that he thought he had an in. "Mom and Dad are really worried about us, you know. We're behind on the car payments, and Bella really needs this win. If you do this, we can probably convince Mom to let you come to the BBQ tomorrow. We'll even let you sit at the main table." The audacity was so thick I could almost taste it. They were asking for $500,000 for illegal kitchen gummies, and their bargaining chip was allowing me to eat a hot dog in the backyard I grew up in. I closed the folder and slid it back across the marble. It stopped right at the edge of the table, teetering. "No," I said. The room went dead silent again. "Excuse me," Bella whispered, her eyes narrowing into slits. "The answer is no," I said, leaning back in my chair. "Vanguard Holdings invests in viable businesses with proprietary technology, experience, leadership, and legal compliance. You have none of those. You have a bag of sugar and a delusion. I'm not giving you $500,000. I'm not giving you 500 cents. Leo slammed his hand on the table. "Are you kidding me? You're sitting on a gold mine and you won't help your own brother. After everything we've done for you, everything you've done for me." I laughed a cold, sharp sound. "You mean like banning me from the family gathering via text message last night? You mean calling me depressed and heavy energy? You want my money, Leo, but you don't want me. That's not how this works. Get out of my office." Bella stood up, her face turning a blotchy, ugly red. "You are just jealous," she hissed, pointing a manicured finger at me. "You have always been jealous of Leo. You're jealous that he's the favorite. You're jealous that he found love, and you're sitting here all alone in your ivory tower with your cats. You're pathetic, Clara. Mom and Dad are going to hear about this. They are going to be disgusted that you chose greed over family." "Yeah," Leo sneered, standing up to join her. "You think you're better than us because you tricked some people into giving you a fancy title. You're still just the weird sister nobody likes. Write the check, Clara, or I swear to God, you will never see your nieces and nephews again." "I don't have nieces and nephews, Leo. You don't have children," I pointed out calmly. "We're planning to," he screamed. "And you won't see them." I pressed the small black button under the lip of my desk. "I think we're done here." The double doors burst open instantly. My head of security, a man named Marcus, who was 6'4" and former Special Forces, stepped in with two other guards. They didn't look like mall cops. They looked like people who solved problems permanently. "Ms. Vance?" Marcus asked, his voice a deep rumble. "These trespassers were just leaving," I said, not breaking eye contact with Bella. "Please ensure they make it all the way to the street. And Marcus, if they try to re-enter the building, call the police and file charges for corporate espionage." "You wouldn't dare!" Bella shrieked as one of the guards stepped toward her. "Try me," I said. "Oh, and Leo, tell Mom and Dad I said hello. I'm sure they'll be fascinating to talk to once they find out their golden child failed to secure the bag." "You're dead to us," Leo shouted as Marcus firmly grabbed his arm. "Don't bother coming home for Christmas. You're nothing." They were dragging them out now. Bella was screaming about suing me about how she was going to cancel me on Instagram, but her voice faded as the heavy glass doors sealed shut. Silence returned to the boardroom. I sat there for a long moment, my heart hammering against my ribs, not from fear, but from the adrenaline of finally saying no. I looked at the Bella Vita folder still teetering on the edge of the table. I reached out and flicked it. It fell to the floor, spilling cheap laser-printed pages onto the carpet. My phone buzzed again. Another text, this time from my mother. "Leo says you were rude to him. Fix it. Now." I smiled a slow, dangerous smile. They thought this was over. They thought they could just bully me back into submission like they had for 32 years. But they had no idea what I was capable of. They had just declared war on the one person who held the deed to their entire existence. The silence in the boardroom after the heavy glass doors sealed shut was heavier than the marble table I was leaning against. My heart was still hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs, not from fear, but from the sheer, unadulterated shock of what I had just done. For 32 years, I had been the doormat. I had been the yes girl. I had been the one who apologized when they stepped on my feet. Telling my brother and his wife to get out of my office wasn't just a rejection. It was a rewiring of my entire existence. I didn't have long to process the victory. My phone, which I had left face down on the table, began to vibrate. It wasn't a text this time. It was a call. "Mom." I watched the screen light up the photo of her smiling with Leo cropped, so I was just a blur on the edge, flashing incessantly. I let it ring. It stopped. 2 seconds later, it started again. "Dad." I silenced it. Then the text started flooding in a digital avalanche of guilt and gaslighting. Mom, 10:14 a.m. Leo just called me in tears. He said you had security throw him out. Are you having a mental breakdown? Dad, 10:15 a.m. I don't know who you think you are playing boss at some office you probably clean, but you will apologize to your brother immediately. He is trying to build a future. You are tearing this family apart. Mom, 10:17 a.m. We raised you better than this, Clara. We gave you a roof over your head. We fed you. And this is how you repay us, by humiliating Leo in front of his wife. You are uninvited from Christmas, too. Don't bother sending gifts. I stared at the messages, feeling that old familiar ache in my chest, the desperate child inside me wanting to explain, to beg them to understand that I was the CEO, that I was the success story. But the woman I had become, the woman who built a portfolio worth billions, knew better. They didn't want the truth. They wanted their punching bag back. I grabbed my purse and walked out of the boardroom. Marcus, I said as I passed the security desk. Marcus looked up from his monitors, his expression grim. Block their numbers from the building switchboard. If they call, they get the automated legal voicemail and send the footage of their exit to my private server. I have a feeling I'm going to need it. Already done, Ms. Vance, Marcus said, giving me a rare, sharp nod. And Clara, you handled that well. I forced a tight smile and headed for the elevator. I needed air, I needed coffee, and most of all, I needed someone who actually saw me. I met Elena at a small hidden bistro in Pike Place Market, a place tourists never found because it was tucked behind a fishmonger's stall. Elena was my VP of operations, my right hand, and the only person in the world who knew the full extent of my family's cruelty. She was already there, nursing a double espresso, looking impeccable in a slate gray power suit. You look like you just fired the entire board of directors, Elena said as I slid into the booth opposite her. Or like you committed a murder, which is it? Leo and Bella found the office, I said, dropping my phone onto the table like a weapon I was surrendering. They came to pitch Bella Vita gummies. They wanted $500,000. Elena choked on her coffee. The gummies. The ones she makes in her bathtub. Please tell me you laughed in their faces. I did better. I had security escort them out. I told them I own the company. Elena's eyes went wide, a slow grin spreading across her face. You dropped the nuke. Finally. How did they take it? They didn't believe me. I said, picking up the menu but not reading it. They think I scammed my way into the title. They called me a janitor. Then they threatened to cut me off from the nieces and nephews they don't even have yet. Classic, Elena muttered, signaling the waiter. They are parasites, Clara. You know that, right? They're like barnacles on a ship. They don't care where the ship is going as long as they can stick to it and feed. You scraping them off is the best thing you've ever done. It doesn't feel like it. I admitted, looking at my phone as another text from Mom popped up. You are a disgrace. It feels like I just orphaned myself. You didn't orphan yourself, Elena said fiercely, reaching across the table to grip my hand. You escaped. There's a difference. You have a family, Clara. You have me. You have Marcus. You have the 200 employees who look up to you. Blood is just biology. Loyalty is love. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a different kind of vibration, a sharp, repetitive ping that I had set for only one thing: high-priority financial alerts. I pulled my hand away and unlocked the screen. It was a notification from the Wells Fargo Fraud Detection Unit. Alert: new credit inquiry. Personal loan application. Amount $250,000. Status pending review. My blood ran cold. I opened the app. The application had been submitted 12 minutes ago. The applicant was Clara Vance. The income listed was my actual income, publicly available information from my company filings. But the address listed on the application wasn't my penthouse in downtown Seattle. It was 428 Maple Drive, my parents' house. What is it? Elena asked, seeing the color drain from my face. Someone just applied for a $250,000 personal loan in my name. I whispered, my thumb hovering over the screen. Using my social security number. Identity theft. Elena said, her voice turning into steel. Who? I tapped the Details tab. The IP address of the applicant was logged. It was a residential Comcast connection. I knew that IP. I had set up their Wi-Fi router 5 years ago. It's them, I said, looking up at Elena, a wave of nausea rolling over me. It's my parents. Or Leo. They're at the house right now. They must have dug up my old tax returns from the attic or something. They're trying to take the money I refused to give them. Elena pulled out her phone. Call the bank, kill it. I dialed the fraud line immediately. I didn't get a robot. As a high net worth client, I got a human within 3 rings. Ms. Vance, the agent said, we have a flagged transaction. It's fraudulent, I said, my voice shaking with a rage so cold it felt like ice in my veins. I did not apply for a loan. I am not at 428 Maple Drive. Understood, the agent said, the clicking of a keyboard audible in the background. I'm freezing the application. Since we have the IP address and the digital signature, which appears to be a clumsy forgery of your name, we can trace this. Ms. Vance, do you want to just cancel the application or do you want to file a formal fraud report? Canceling it stops the money. Filing a report triggers a criminal investigation. I hesitated. This was the moment, the point of no return. If I just canceled it, they would claim it was a misunderstanding or a glitch. They would get away with it just like they got away with stealing my college fund for Leo's first car, just like they got away with everything. But if I filed the report, that was a felony. That was handcuffs. I looked at the text from my mother. You are a disgrace. They didn't see me as a daughter. They saw me as a resource. And when the resource refused to yield, they decided to steal it. File the report, I said into the phone. I want a full investigation. I want to press charges against whoever submitted that application. Are you sure, Ms. Vance, if this turns out to be a family member? I have no family, I said, my eyes locking with Elena's. Do it. Done. You'll have the case number in your email in 5 minutes. I hung up. The silence at the table was different now. It wasn't heavy. It was electric. You press the button, Elena said softly. I pressed the button, I confirmed. But I'm not done. If they are desperate enough to commit a felony on a Saturday morning, their finances must be worse than I thought. I need to know everything. I stood up. Lunch is on me. I need to go see Marcus. Marcus ran his private investigation firm out of a nondescript brick building in the industrial district, a stark contrast to the gleaming glass of Vanguard Holdings. But inside, it was a fortress of information. Servers hummed in the corner and screens covered every wall. When I walked in an hour later, Marcus was already waiting for me. He had a thick file on his desk, the red folder. I got your text about the loan. Marcus said, not bothering with pleasantries. That was a bold move, Clara. Stupid but bold. They used a shared family computer. The digital fingerprint is all over it. It was Leo who hit submit, but your mother's email was logged in on the other tab. They're all in on it. I figured, I said, pacing the room. But why now? Why are they so desperate Bella asked for $500,000 like it was life or death? Marcus opened the folder. Because it is, Clara, your parents are broke. I stopped pacing. What? Dad has a pension. The house is paid off. The house was paid off, Marcus corrected, sliding a document across the desk. 3 years ago, they took out a second mortgage, a variable rate HELOC. They pulled out $300,000. For what? For Leo, Marcus said, for his crypto investment phase. Remember that it went to zero. Then they took out personal loans to cover the payments. Then Bella came along with her lifestyle brand dreams. They've been funneling every cent of their retirement into keeping Leo and Bella afloat. They are 3 months behind on the mortgage. The bank is threatening foreclosure on your parents' house. I stared at the documents. The numbers were staggering. They were drowning, and instead of asking me for help, instead of treating me like a human being, they had decided to rob me. And Bella, I asked, what about her? Marcus flipped a page. Bella isn't Bella Vance, or Bella Smith. Her real name is Brenda Miller. She has a record in Arizona, credit card fraud check kiting. She marries guys, maxes out their credit, and vanishes. She's not an influencer. She's a locust. She found Leo saw the golden child status and assumed there was family money. She picked the wrong sibling, I muttered. She picked the one your parents enabled, Marcus said. But here's the kicker, Clara. The house Leo and Bella are living in, the Creekside estate, the one they brag about on Instagram. I know the house, I said quietly. Do you? Marcus looked at me, raising an eyebrow. Because according to public records, that house is owned by a shell company called Padlock Properties, LLC. I walked over to the window, looking out at the rain-slicked street. I know, because I am Padlock Properties. Marcus paused. You own the house they live in. I bought it 3 years ago. I explained, turning back to him. Leo was getting kicked out of his apartment. He was going to move back in with Mom and Dad, and I knew that would destroy their marriage. Dad was already stressed, so I bought the Creekside place through the LLC. I told the property manager to tell Leo that a foreign investor needed a house sitter and wouldn't charge rent as long as they maintained the property. I wanted to give him a chance to get on his feet without him knowing it was charity from the sister he hates. And they have no idea. None. They think they're scamming some rich guy in Dubai. They've been living there rent-free for 3 years. Marcus let out a low whistle. So let me get this straight. You are paying the mortgage on the roof over their heads. Your parents are bankrupting themselves to fund their lifestyle. And they just tried to steal $250,000 from you. Yes. Clara. Marcus stood up, closing the folder. You don't need a lawyer. You need an exorcist. But since I'm not a priest, I suggest we go with the nuclear option. What's the nuclear option? You hold the deed. You hold the fraud report. You hold the evidence of Bella's criminal past. Marcus said, his voice grim. Tomorrow is the BBQ, the one you were banned from. I was told I bring down the vibe, I said dryly. I think it's time you brought down the house, Marcus said. Literally, you can evict them. You can have the police waiting to arrest them for the identity theft. And you can expose Bella to your parents before she drains the last dollar they have. I looked at the red folder. I thought about the text message. Don't come to the BBQ. I thought about Leo's sneer in my office. You're nothing. I picked up the folder. It felt heavy in my hands like a judge's gavel. Draw up the eviction notice, I said. 3-day notice to quit, no mercy, and print out the police report for the identity theft. I want physical copies. You're going to the BBQ. Oh, I'm going, I said, a cold resolve settling over me. And I'm not bringing potato salad, I'm bringing the truth. I walked out of Marcus's office and into the rain. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Mom. Mom, 2:00 p.m. I hope you're happy. Bella is crying in her room. We are all so disappointed in you. Don't expect us to cover for you when you end up alone. I typed back for the first time in hours. Me don't worry, Mom. I won't be alone. I'll see you tomorrow. I got into my car, not the sensible sedan I usually drove to visit them, but the Porsche 911 Turbo S that I kept in the garage for days when I needed to feel powerful. I revved the engine, the sound, a guttural roar that vibrated through the chassis. The weird sister was dead. The CEO was taking over. And tomorrow the golden child was going to learn that gold is soft but steel. The steel I had forged myself into doesn't bend. The rain had turned into a deluge by the time I pulled my Porsche into the private garage of my building. I didn't even feel the cold dampness of the underground structure. My skin was burning with a feverish intensity that had nothing to do with illness and everything to do with the revelation sitting on the passenger seat, the red folder, the tangible proof that my family wasn't just toxic, they were criminal. I took the private elevator up to the penthouse, the silence of the ascent pressing against my ears. Usually this silence was my sanctuary, a reminder of how far I had come from the chaotic screaming arguments of my childhood home. Tonight the silence felt heavy, like the calm before a detonation. I poured myself a glass of heavy Cabernet, not because I wanted the alcohol, but because I needed something to ground me, something bitter to match the taste in my mouth. I sat on the floor of my living room, the city lights of Seattle blurred by the rain on the floor-to-ceiling windows, and I opened the folder again. Marcus had been thorough. The depth of the betrayal wasn't just in the loan application, it was in the history. I spent the next 3 hours dissecting the financial autopsy of the people who raised me. It was a gruesome read. I saw the timeline clearly now. 3 years ago, when Leo decided he was too good for a 9-to-5 job, my parents had liquidated their 401k. I remembered that month. Mom had called me crying, saying they were tight on cash because of a tax error, and I had sent them $5,000. I saw the transfer on their bank statement in the file. It hadn't gone to taxes. It had gone to a dealership as a down payment for Leo's truck. I turned the page. 2 years ago. The second mortgage. That was when Bella entered the picture. I saw the credit card statements under her alias, Brenda Miller, linked to a joint account with my mother. Thousands of dollars at Sephora Nordstrom and luxury resorts in Cabo. My mother, who used to yell at me for leaving a light on because electricity costs money, was funding 5-star vacations for a woman who was actively conning her. But the knife twisted deepest when I found the email correspondence Marcus had scraped. It was a printout of an email chain between my father and a loan officer from a predatory lending company dated 6 months ago. From Dad to Quick Cash loans, subject collateral. My daughter Clara has a steady job as a secretary, but she has some assets in a trust we manage. We can use her name as a guarantor if the rate can be lowered. There was no trust. They were lying to lenders about my assets, even back then laying the groundwork to use me as a financial shield. They had been planning to harvest me for parts all along. I wasn't a daughter to them. I was an insurance policy they resented having to pay premiums on. My phone buzzed on the carpet beside me. It was 11:42 p.m. The screen lit up with a text from Leo. "Leo, Mom can't sleep because of you. She's crying in the kitchen. I hope you're proud of yourself. You have so much money and you won't even help us with a small investment. You're a monster." I stared at the word, monster. I remembered being 10 years old sitting at the kitchen table trying to do my homework while Leo threw a baseball against the wall. When I asked him to stop, Mom had stormed in and grounded me for stifling his creativity. I was the monster then, too. I was always the monster when I inconvenienced their golden child. I didn't reply. I simply took a photo of the police report number I had received from the fraud department, case number 492-FRAUD-WIRE, and saved it to my camera roll. I wasn't going to send it. Not yet. That was for the grand finale. I barely slept. I dozed on the sofa, waking up with the gray light of Sunday morning. The rain had stopped leaving the city, scrubbed clean and cold. Today was the day. The BBQ, the annual Vance family kickoff to summer, a tradition where the entire neighborhood was invited to marvel at what a perfect, happy family the Vances were. They would be grilling ribs, drinking cheap beer, and telling everyone that Clara couldn't make it because she was working or having one of her moods. I stood up and walked to the bathroom, catching my reflection in the mirror. I looked tired, pale. But there was something in my eyes that hadn't been there yesterday. The hesitation was gone. The little girl who wanted to be loved had packed her bags and left, leaving only the CEO, who knew how to execute a hostile takeover. I showered the hot water, scalding away the last of the doubt. Then I walked into my walk-in closet. Usually for family events, I dressed down. I wore beige cardigans, flat shoes, and minimal makeup. I tried to make myself small so I wouldn't trigger Bella's insecurity or Mom's criticism. I tried to blend into the wallpaper so they wouldn't find a reason to attack me. Not today. I pushed aside the beige. I reached into the back of the closet to the section where I kept the clothes I wore for board meetings, where I needed to intimidate billionaires. I pulled out a dress I had bought in Paris, a structured blood-red Alexander McQueen sheath dress that fit like a second skin and cost more than Leo's truck. It was aggressive, sharp, and unapologetically expensive. I pulled it on, zipping it up with a decisive snap. I put on the Louboutin heels, the black ones with the spikes on the toes. I put on the diamond studs I had bought myself after my first million. I applied my makeup with surgical precision, sharp eyeliner, blood-red lips. I wasn't dressing for a BBQ. I was dressing for a funeral. specifically the funeral of their lives. My phone rang at 10 a.m. It was Marcus. "The eviction notice is served." "Well, it will be," Marcus said. "I have the papers. I also have the police on standby. Officer Miller. No relation to Bella, is a buddy of mine. He's parked 2 blocks away from your parents' house. He knows about the identity theft report. He's waiting for your signal." "Good," I said, putting on my sunglasses, even though I was inside. "And the other thing?" "The deed transfer," Marcus asked. "I have the certified copy showing you as the sole owner of Padlock Properties and Padlock Properties as the sole owner of 1400 Creekside Lane. There is no ambiguity, Clara. You can legally change the locks today if you want." "I intend to," I said. "I'll see you there, Marcus." "Clara," he paused. "Be careful. When narcissists get cornered, they bite." "I know," I said, grabbing my keys, "but I have teeth too." I took the elevator down to the garage. The Porsche 911 Turbo S was waiting. I usually took my beat-up Honda Civic to my parents' house to avoid questions. I had kept the Porsche a secret just like I kept my company a secret, just like I kept my happiness a secret. I threw the red folder onto the passenger seat. I climbed in the leather, creaking softly. I pressed the ignition and the engine roared to life, a deep, guttural growl that echoed off the concrete walls. I backed out and drove into the sunlight. The drive to the suburbs took 40 minutes. 40 minutes to replay every insult, every exclusion, every time they had made me feel worthless. I remembered my college graduation where they showed up late because Leo had a minor headache and then left early because they were bored. I remembered the time I got a promotion at my first job and Mom asked if it came with a uniform. I remembered yesterday Leo standing in my office telling me I was nothing. The anger wasn't hot anymore. It was cold. It was a glacier moving through a valley unstoppable and crushing. I turned onto Maple Drive. The street was lined with cars. My parents' house, the house they were about to lose to the bank, was decked out in balloons. I could smell the charcoal smoke from blocks away. I could hear the music. It was a country song about family and dirt roads. The hypocrisy almost made me laugh. I didn't park down the street. I didn't park in the driveway. I drove the Porsche right up onto the front lawn. The low front spoiler sheared through my mother's prize-winning hydrangeas, sending petals exploding into the air. The engine was loud, a mechanical scream that cut through the music and the chatter. I slammed on the brakes just feet from the porch steps, the tires tearing deep gouges into the manicured grass. The music stopped. The conversation died. I killed the engine. The silence that followed was absolute. I opened the door and stepped out. My heels sank slightly into the soil, but I stood tall. The red dress blazed in the afternoon sun. I adjusted my sunglasses and looked at the crowd. There were about 30 people. Aunts, uncles, neighbors. People who had known me since I was a child. People who had been told for years that Clara was the troubled one, the unlucky one. They were staring at the car. They were staring at me. "Who is that?" I heard Aunt Linda whisper. "Is that Clara?" My mother was standing by the punch bowl holding a ladle. She dropped it. It splashed red punch all over the white tablecloth, looking like a crime scene. Her mouth hung open. She looked at the car, then at my dress, then at my face. Leo was by the grill holding a pair of tongs. Bella was next to him wearing a white sundress and a floppy hat, playing the role of the demure housewife. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. "What the hell are you doing?" my father bellowed, storming down the porch steps, his face purple with rage. "You just ruined the lawn, is that—" "Whose car is that? Did you steal a car?" "Clara." I didn't answer him. I walked around the hood of the Porsche, opened the passenger door, and retrieved the red folder. I slammed the door shut. "You weren't invited," Leo shouted, trying to regain control of the narrative, trying to perform for the audience. "We told you not to come. You're drunk. Look at her. She's clearly having an episode." "I'm not drunk, Leo," I said. My voice wasn't loud, but in the silence it carried to the back of the yard. "And I'm not here for a burger." I walked up the path, the crowd parting for me like the Red Sea. They looked terrified. Good. I stopped at the bottom of the porch steps, looking up at my father. He was visibly shaking, caught between fury and confusion. "You have guests," I said, gesturing to the neighbors who were watching with wide eyes. "I think they should hear this." "Get out," Dad hissed, stepping closer to me. "Get out before I call the police." "Please do," I smiled. "I actually beat you to it. They're 2 blocks away." Bella stepped forward, her voice trembling. "Clara, stop it. You're embarrassing yourself. Just leave. We can talk about whatever this is later." "We're done talking, Brenda," I said. A gasp went through the crowd. Bella froze. "My name is Bella," she stammered. "Your name is Brenda Miller," I corrected, opening the folder. "You have outstanding warrants in Arizona and Nevada for credit card fraud. You're currently wanted for questioning regarding a check-kiting scheme in Phoenix." "Liar." Bella screamed, her facade cracking instantly. "She's lying. She's crazy." "And you," I turned my gaze to Leo, who was shrinking back against the grill. "You came to my office yesterday. You asked for $500,000. You told me I was nothing." "It was a business meeting," Leo squeaked. "It was a shakedown," I said. "And when I said no, you and Mom and Dad decided you weren't going to take no for an answer." I pulled out the police report. I held it up so everyone could see the official seal. "Yesterday, at 10:14 a.m., a fraudulent loan application was submitted to Wells Fargo in my name for $250,000, I announced. The neighbors began to murmur. The IP address was traced to this house. The digital signature was forged. That is a federal crime. It's called wire fraud and identity theft. "Clara, put that away," Mom pleaded, stepping off the porch, her voice a desperate whisper. "Not in front of the neighbors. We can explain. We needed to borrow it. We were going to pay you back. Borrow it." I laughed a harsh sound. "You stole my identity, Mom. You committed a felony because you're broke." "We are not broke," Dad roared. "We are fine." "You are 3 months behind on your mortgage," I said, pulling out the foreclosure notice. "You have maxed out every credit card you own, funding Leo's lifestyle and Bella's fake brand. You are drowning, and you tried to use me as a life jacket." I threw the papers onto the porch table right next to the potato salad. "But that's not the best part," I said, turning to Leo. Leo was pale, sweating profusely. "Clara, please, don't." "You live in the Creekside estate," I said. "Nice house, 4 bedrooms, pool. You tell everyone you're house-sitting for a Saudi prince." "I am," Leo said. "He's a friend." "He doesn't exist," I said. "The house is owned by a company called Padlock Properties." "So," Bella sneered, trying to rally. "What do you know about it?" "I am Padlock Properties," I said. The silence this time was different. It was the silence of a world shifting on its axis. "What?" Leo whispered. "I bought the house 3 years ago," I said. "I bought it so you wouldn't be homeless. I let you live there rent-free for 3 years. I paid the taxes. I paid the insurance. I fixed the roof." "No." Mom shook her head. "No, you're a secretary. You don't have that kind of money. I am the CEO of Vanguard Holdings." I said, my voice ringing out with the full authority of my position. "I manage $2 billion in assets. I bought your house with my bonus check from 2022, and you know what? I was happy to do it. I was happy to let you have your dignity." I reached into the folder and pulled out the last document. The eviction notice. "But then you told me I wasn't family," I said, walking up the steps and shoving the paper into Leo's chest. "You told me I wasn't wanted. You tried to steal from me, so I'm granting your wish. We aren't family, and since we aren't family, you're just a squatter." "This is a 3-day notice to vacate," I said, cold and clear. "You have 72 hours to get your things and get out of my house. If you are still there on Wednesday at noon, the sheriff will remove you." "You can't do this," Bella shrieked, lunging at me. "We have rights. That's our home." "It's my house," I snapped. "And you are a guest who just overstayed her welcome." Sirens wailed in the distance, getting louder. "And that," I said, pointing toward the street, "is for the fraud." 2 police cruisers turned the corner lights flashing. They pulled up onto the lawn right behind my Porsche. "Officer Miller," I called out as the uniformed man stepped out of the car. "The woman in the white hat is Brenda Miller, and the man in the apron is the one who submitted the fraudulent loan application. The barbecue was over. The judgment had begun. The arrival of the police didn't silence the barbecue. It detonated it. Officer Miller, a man with a jaw like a slab of granite and eyes that had seen every variation of suburban decay, didn't look at me. He walked straight toward the grill where Bella, or rather Brenda, was trying to shrink behind my brother. Brenda Miller. Officer Miller asked, his hand resting casually on his belt just inches from the handcuffs. "My name is Bella Vance," she shrieked, her voice cracking. She grabbed Leo's arm, digging her nails into his bicep. "Leo, tell him who I am. This is harassment. Clara paid these actors to scare us." Leo looked at the officer, then at the police cruiser, then at me. For the first time in his life, the golden child realized that his shine was just spray paint, and it was peeling off. I don't, he stammered, stepping away from her. "Leo," she screamed, the betrayal on her face, almost comical considering she'd been conning him for 2 years. "Brenda Miller." The officer repeated, stepping closer. "We have an extradition warrant from the state of Nevada for felony fraud and grand larceny. And we have a new complaint filed this morning regarding the unauthorized use of personal identification information. You have the right to remain silent." As he reached for her, Bella bolted. It was a pathetic attempt. She scrambled over the picnic table, kicking a bowl of coleslaw into Aunt Linda's lap, and tried to run toward the back fence. Officer Miller didn't even run. He just strode forward, grabbed the back of her sundress, and pinned her against the cedar fence my father had built 3 summers ago. "Get off me!" she howled as the cuffs clicked shut. "My husband is rich. We have money. We'll sue you." "Your husband," I said, my voice cutting through her screams as I walked closer, "is unemployed, and the only money he has is what he tried to steal from me this morning." I looked at my parents. They were frozen, standing like statues in a museum of failures. My mother was clutching her pearls so hard I thought the string would snap. My father looked old suddenly. The arrogance that had fueled him for decades, the belief that he was the patriarch of a perfect dynasty, had evaporated, leaving a scared small man in a stained polo shirt. "Clara." My mother whispered, tears streaming down her face, ruining her makeup. "Fix this. Please, just tell the officer it was a mistake. She's family." "She's a criminal, Mom," I said coldly. "And so are you." Officer Miller marched Bella past us, stuffing her into the back of the cruiser. She was still screaming curses at me, at Leo, at the world. "Mr. Vance," Officer Miller said, turning to Leo, "you're listed on the loan application as well. However, Ms. Vance has indicated she believes you were coerced. We'll be taking you in for questioning. Don't leave town." Leo collapsed. He literally fell to his knees in the grass, sobbing into his hands. "I didn't know," he wailed. "She told me it was legal. She told me Clara wouldn't mind." I looked down at him. "Get up, Leo. You're ruining the grass." I turned to the crowd of neighbors. They were silent phones, out recording every second. The Vance family BBQ was now a viral event, but not in the way Bella had hoped. "The party is over," I announced. "I suggest you all go home before the sheriff arrives to serve the eviction papers." I walked back to my Porsche, the red dress swishing around my legs. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. The image of my mother weeping over the potato salad while my sister-in-law was hauled away in handcuffs was burned into my memory forever. It was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. The next 72 hours were a blur of legal violence. I didn't handle the eviction personally. I hired a specialized team, Marcus's guys, to enforce the deadline. On Wednesday at noon, exactly when the notice expired, a locksmith and 4 movers arrived at the Creekside estate. Leo was there, sitting on the curb with 3 garbage bags of clothes. He looked like a ghost. Bella was still in county jail, denied bail because of her flight risk status and the out-of-state warrants. Marcus FaceTimed me from the scene. "It's bad, Clara," he said, panning the camera around the living room. They had trashed it. The walls were gouged. The copper piping in the basement had been ripped out, probably Leo trying to scrap it for quick cash in a panic. The expensive appliances I had installed were dented. "Document everything." I told Marcus from my office, watching the feed on my monitor. Every scratch, every hole. I'm adding the damages to the civil suit. Your parents are here, Marcus said, turning the camera toward the driveway. My dad's station wagon was parked haphazardly on the lawn. He was arguing with the movers, waving his arms. Let me talk to him, I said. Marcus walked out and handed the phone to my father. Clara. Dad shouted into the screen, his face red and sweaty. Call these goons off. You can't throw your brother on the street. Where's he supposed to go? He can come live with you, Dad, I said calmly. Oh, wait, you're being foreclosed on, aren't you? Maybe you can all share a tent. You ungrateful witch, he spat. After everything we did for you, we gave you life. And I'm giving you a reality check, I replied. You stole my identity, Dad. You tried to defraud a bank in my name. The only reason you aren't in a cell next to Bella right now is because I told the DA I wanted to handle you civilly first. But push me, and I'll send Officer Miller to your house next. You wouldn't, he faltered. Try me. He stared at the screen, hate warring with fear in his eyes. Fear won. He handed the phone back to Marcus without another word and went to help Leo load his garbage bags into the station wagon. I ended the call. The fallout was total. Bella Brenda pled guilty 3 weeks later. The evidence was overwhelming. Between the fraud in Nevada and the identity theft against me, she was looking at 5 to 7 years. I went to the sentencing hearing. I sat in the back row wearing sunglasses. When the judge read the sentence, 6 years in a federal penitentiary, she turned and looked at me. Her eyes were black holes of rage. I just smiled and gave her a little wave. Leo filed for divorce the day after she was sentenced, but he didn't get off scot-free. Because his name was on the fraudulent loan application, his credit score was nuked. He was blacklisted by every major bank. He lost his truck, repossessed. He lost his job as Bella's brand manager. He ended up moving into a one-bedroom apartment with my parents. But that arrangement didn't last long. Without my money and with their credit ruined by the investigation into the loan fraud, my parents couldn't refinance their home. The bank foreclosed in August. They lost the house on Maple Drive, the house where I had grown up feeling like a stranger. They had to sell everything. The furniture, the second car, the heirlooms, they had promised to leave to Leo. They moved into a cramped ground-floor apartment in a bad part of town, living off my father's shrinking pension and my mother's Social Security. I heard through the grapevine Aunt Linda, who had suddenly become very chatty, and Team Clara, when she realized I was a multi-millionaire, that it was a miserable existence. Leo slept on the couch. Mom cried all day. Dad sat in his chair and stared at the wall, muttering about how the world had cheated him. They blamed me, of course. In their minds, I was the villain who had stolen their happiness. They never once admitted that they had dug the hole themselves. But I didn't care about their narrative anymore. I was too busy rewriting my own. 6 months after the BBQ, I was sitting on the terrace of my new penthouse, a different one, bigger, with a view of the Sound. Elena was pouring champagne. Marcus was there too, celebrating closing a massive contract for his security firm, which was now the exclusive provider for Vanguard Holdings. To the scapegoat, Elena proposed a toast, raising her glass. May she never apologize again. To the CEO, Marcus added, clinking his glass against mine. And to Padlock Properties. We laughed. It was a rich, genuine sound that felt alien to the girl I used to be. My phone buzzed on the glass table. I glanced at it. It was a letter. Not a text, but a photo of a handwritten letter sent from a number I didn't recognize. It was my father's handwriting. Shaky. Desperate. Clara, we are in a bad way. Leo needs dental work. Your mother is sick with worry. We know we were hard on you, but family forgives. Please. We are your blood. Just a small loan to get us into a better apartment. We love you, Dad. I stared at the words, we love you. They didn't love me. They loved what I could provide. They loved the idea of a safety net. They loved the money. I looked at Elena and Marcus. My chosen family, the people who had stood by me when I had nothing but a plan, the people who celebrated my birthday without needing a reminder, the people who protected me, not plundered me. Everything okay? Elena asked, seeing my expression. Perfect, I said. I picked up the phone. I didn't block the number. That would be too passive. I typed a reply. to whom it may concern. Clara Vance no longer exists for you. The person you are trying to reach is a limited liability corporation that has dissolved all assets related to the Vance family estate. Any further attempts at contact will be considered harassment and forwarded to the district attorney, violating the restraining order I filed this morning. Do not contact me again. Signed, the landlord. I hit send. Then I blocked the number. I stood up and walked to the railing, looking out over the city. The wind was cold, but I felt warm. I had won. I hadn't just survived, I had conquered. I had taken the bricks they threw at me and built a fortress they couldn't enter. I took a sip of champagne. It tasted like victory. Looking back at that barbecue, Clara's story isn't really about the money, the house, or even the handcuffs. It's about that terrifying, beautiful moment when you finally realize you don't need their permission to be happy. We are often raised to believe that family comes first and that we must endure anything to keep the peace. But Clara taught us a hard truth. Today, peace built on your silence isn't peace, it's submission. Real family doesn't ask you to set yourself on fire just to keep them warm. Real family is the people who celebrate your victories, not the ones who try to steal them. If you are out there right now feeling like the black sheep or the scapegoat, please remember this. You have the right to fire toxic people from your life, even if they share your last name. Your value isn't determined by how useful you are to them. Your value is inherent. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away, lock the door, and never look back. If this story resonated with you, or if you believe that justice is best served cold, please share this video with someone who might need to hear it. And make sure you are subscribed to the channel. We are building a community here that stands up for the truth. But don't go just yet. If you liked watching Clara take back her power, you are going to love the video on your screen right now. It's another incredible story of betrayal and the ultimate comeback. Click that video and let's keep the justice train moving. I'll see you there.